So, Johnny, recently I discovered this article by GeekWire saying new bill establishes group to recommend policies for blockchain tech in Washington state. And it caught my eye because I'm living in Washington state and we've been
Mm.
talking about, blockchain and Web3 tech, how it's cool and decentralized. And it's supposed to be better because, we don't have any central governance and government, quote unquote, intervene with how, things are developed. And what they are claiming here is that the group will assess impacts on existing industries, evaluate racial equity in the sector, and assess electricity demand, environmental considerations. And all these sounds like now government is interested in maybe regulating what we're doing as a business of Web3 technologies. And in this video, we are going to talk about our take on, is it helpful that government is being involved in Web3, coming in and regulate? Is it overall going to be healthy for everyone involved in the industry? Or is it maybe harmful and the very principle of decentralization is maybe violated? My name is Elisha Terada. I'm the Innovation Technology Director at Fresh Labs. And we have Johnny here, who is the Strategic Innovation Director at Fresh Labs. So, Johnny, what's your first impression on Washington State coming in and doing this, and keeping in mind that you live in Austin, but Texas may set something up, right, next year, setting up a committee saying, hey, you can do this, but you can't do this.
I know that this topic with politics can be divisive and very opinionated, so this is my own opinion here. But on the surface, it feels like hearing about the government getting involved with decentralization seems a little bit like defeats the purpose, kind of counterproductive towards the goal of that, right? I can see there being benefits where a government organization gets involved. It might allow things to move faster if they're able to set some regulations that are enabling regulations as opposed to restrictive ones. So it could be like, hey, like this is encouraged and there's actually funding tied to it. We're going to set up these committees that then encourage it and allow other businesses from different industries to get in. I don't know all the nuances of what they're doing there, so I'm super curious about that.
In the article, one of the things they say is evaluate racial equity in the sector, which I thought is very interesting. They're almost treating it as a business sector of its own, which is interesting in itself, that government now recognize, okay, it's its own thing, just like healthcare sector and the legal sector, and we had a tech sector already, but I guess this is now considered like a newer sector.
The blockchain,
now
Web3 sector.
Blockchain Web3, right? Now they have to put their own eyes into its own category. And of course it makes sense, right? Like racial equity, of course we want government coming in, just like food safety. Like I go to a restaurant and I look at food safety rating in our King County in Washington, and I like that because I want to know, are they actually preparing food in safe manner? I'd rather have government regulate that than restaurant owners saying, hey, let us make whatever we want, however we want, because that doesn't sound safe to me, right?
So that's an example of like an enabling regulation that is helping the consumer, in this case restaurant visitors, right, like to ensure the quality of cleaning and the quality of the ingredients that are used. And so it's enabling for the consumer. Lots of hoops probably for the business owner, but probably more beneficial overall for those consuming it.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement where if it help promote the healthy usage of technologies, and especially I'm worried about maybe older generations of people who may get scammed, right, for some blockchain reasons. Like you can sometimes go into some stores like, hey, you can buy Bitcoin here. Are you sure that's like a safe way to buy or interact with the blockchain? Or they might say, oh, upload your profile to blockchain. Like, are you sure you are protecting my, personal information using your blockchain? Right?
Good point.
So I think I, as a savvy consumer in this space, can discern what looks like kind of sketchy. But I want like my parents to be protected from, blockchain technology that may be used to harm individuals in the name of the proper business in Washington state. Some business might be doing something shady. So to me, it makes sense. But we keep going back to this argument of, should we verify who's behind avatar so they are not
That's where my thought process was just now. Was
some
thinking like,
offenders.
oh, if they had a way to validate authenticity or verification of users that then can use whatever avatars, but there's like a regulation around that, that could be pretty enabling.
Yeah. And what if some, I don't know, blockchain companies start to work with the public schools, and you find out that your kids, I don't know, information is uploaded to blockchain without consent or understanding what it is, because maybe school didn't understand what the vendor was doing. Each school, they rely on external like IT tech companies to come in, right, to set up tablets and computers, and kids are interacting with that technologies every day for education purpose. But there could be some blockchain technologies being utilized, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there is grades being tracked on blockchain, so teachers can't just like manipulate in the Excel spreadsheet and things like that. So I can see valid use for blockchain, but I can also see, I want government to kind of watch over how it's integrated in our society so that our lives are not ruined. Maybe I want government to leave me alone when I'm chatting with someone on Metaverse, right? But when it comes to having it integrated in my city, maybe I want my government to kind of have watch over. So it's kind of like conflicting view. Yeah, conflicting view. Like, yeah, let's regulate, just not in my backyard kind of argument, right? Just don't regulate me, but I want government to regulate other people. So that's where my thought is like, yeah, maybe I may not be as fair or, maybe straightforward in this view. I don't want my internet providers to like snoop on like what business I'm doing, but it's probably good to monitor hacking activities, for example. It's kind of like that, where I see both ways.
In this perfect world where you can validate, or you can like, you have the confidence that the government is going to be advanced and tech savvy enough to know how to move things forward, and then put the right regulations that are the most enabling, then it's like, that's perfect. But we all know that there's local governments, there's, the state, national, and I was just talking about US, right? So there's different ways people handle it. So it's something that has to be kind of thought about just holistically. I don't know. Have you seen the Steven Spielberg movie, Ready Player One?
Oh, I actually haven't yet. I actually wanted to watch it.
We gotta watch that. We'll have to maybe do a watch and live reaction. That would be actually fun.
Yeah.
I won't give you any spoiler alerts, but it envisions a future of essentially the metaverse, right? It came from Snow Crasher, I think it was, the book that was written years before. Steven Spielberg turned that into a motion picture. It did quite well, and there's a second movie coming out, and I think that'll have a lot of hype given everything that's going on. But I mention it because I think about some elements of that movie that are depicting of the ideal state of the metaverse is existing. People have haptic, fully wearable suits. They have very immersive virtual reality that feels hyper realistic. It could take people that might be living in maybe a poor, like a not fully developed community, and give them the opportunity to have like an equal playing field in a metaverse environment where they're competing and earning and doing jobs, right? So it's kind of an interesting take, but I imagine like if the government were to say, hey, only these type of headsets can be used because there's negative influences towards virtual reality and screen time, we're going to limit the use of time that's used towards it. Or only these particular companies that work with the government agencies are allowed to do haptic suits. So I'm thinking about like some of those things, maybe foundational, maybe infrastructure, accessories, hardware, software. If the government starts to get involved in some of those details, it can be tricky. I like the idea of setting standards though. Like you said, like the health code is a very good example of, hey, we only do burgers in the US, burgers and pizza, right? It's not like a regulation on that. It's more of like the ingredients need to be fresh. We do periodic tests of that, right? So there could be elements of like, let's check what's your data storage like? Is there vulnerabilities in how this could be exposed? Are there privacy issues with the age of the people that have personal details tied to it, right? It could be that companies that are, let's say Washington State, companies that are building metaverse environments, how they might want to do things. Anyway, something we should think about.
Basically, we want to make sure there's no physical or mental harm to ourselves, right? just
Definitely.
just because we want to enable decentralized ability to do things on our own without like government like constantly overseeing and regulating doesn't mean we want to voluntarily be in a situation where there are a lot of risk, especially like physical, mental. Of course, we want to watch the effect on our youth, right? Like we kind of learned that from the Web2 world, how technologies can be very harmful for mental health and everything. We probably agree on that. Let's protect our well-beings, but let's hope that government doesn't come in and starts to put weird restrictions that are
Yeah.
prohibiting or inhibiting
Yeah.
the innovations in the Web3 space. This is just the start of the conversation, right? We just saw this happen in April in Washington State, and there may be more things come up, and we might follow the story of how government is starting to regulate within the US. In the comment section, I'm very interested if people have seen it happen in your own country, in your own city and state, and also what you think of government being involved. Are there
Whether
any
it's good or bad,
country,
or
yeah, good or bad, and are there any country or state that's like doing maybe better job with the policies and actually working out that we should all copy and learn from? Or do you think it should be more like tech community solving the problem instead of leaving it to like a government, that we should self-govern? That's another concept of, hey, as a tech creators, we should self-govern before it gets to the point where government has to intervene. Please leave comment, and please follow us for more updates on these types of topic, and make sure to hit the bell so you always get notified when we have new videos. Well, thank you for watching the video, and we'll hope to see you again.